At 3 minutes, I will start with Godzilla. Godzilla was the 1950s Japanese monster movie that the Americans famously bought and recut in order to make it star Raymond Burr so they could sell it to an English-speaking audience. And the original version was 96 minutes long, with 20 minutes of additional footage from the Americans. It ended up at 80 minutes long, which basically tells you what they did to the Japanese original. They just took the shots of the monster and took everything else out of it and, you know, made it into a sort of perfectly passable but rather silly monster romp. Now it's being reissued in the original Japanese format, and I went to see this new print with, I have to say, no great expectations, because I was never a particularly huge fan of Godzilla in its original, in its Americanized incarnation. Gojira, as it is apparently properly called, is just fantastic. The best thing about it is, I mean, the monster effects you've all seen before. It's the guy in the suit walking around, you know, destroying town, and that's as it always was. But what makes the film so great is, in its original incarnation, it's incredibly melancholic. It's incredibly elegiac. It has these very intricate discussions of, should we destroy Gojira or study him? Because since he has survived an H-bomb testing, maybe he knows something we don't do. Should we use an oxygen bomb to get rid of him and thereby unleash a new weapon upon the world? Is it our fault that it's happened in the first place? Is there anywhere to hide in this new technological era? I mean, it's a really profoundly philosophical movie in the way that all great science fiction is. And I was really touched by it. I thought at the beginning it's going to be quite kitsch and enjoyable to see, you know, creaky old special effects. So actually, of course, it is done very well. The slightly slowed down photography does give the model of the lizard a real sense of physical presence, and of course it's not CGI. I mean, we know from the most recent version of Godzilla, that hideous American version, it doesn't matter how many buildings he stamped on. If he looks like he was dreamed up on somebody's Pac-Man, like he was a computer game, you don't get any sense of physical presence. The thing with the original is occasionally some of the model work is, you know, it's a bit creaky. There are a couple of shots of toy cars being knocked over, but the monster itself actually has a presence, and it's really emotionally involving. It's really quite sad. It's got real characters, and it's got real dialogue, and it's got real issues being thrashed out in a great sort of metaphorical way. And I mean, I was really surprised, because I'd never seen the Japanese version before. Apparently it's not been released in Britain before. I'm sure it's been available, you know, maybe on the international market, but obviously in Japan. But it was really something, really something special. And go see it, because it's a terrific piece of work.
This from Andrew, who says, now it may be boring for you. Don't say anything until we get to the end of this, because I know what you think about this. Yeah. It may be boring for you, but I need to ask your to adjudicate on a long-running and equally tedious dispute between me and a friend of mine regarding a film that came out a few years ago called The Dish. Is this a charming and whimsical story of how a group of Australians running a satellite link in the outback played a key role in the Apollo moon landings, or a charmless, insipid and deeply turgid film where the audience is supposed to be amused by the extraordinary cultural differences between the Americans at Mission Control and the ochre farmers back at Wallamaloo Sheep Station in scorched Tinny Creek, Oz? Mark, the decision is yours. We both esteem you highly enough. My friend does have a habit of referring to you as the boy Kermode, which I think shows a lack of deference and respect. And then there's a comment about Wolf Creek, which we'll come to. So, okay. Which of the two sides of this argument do you wish to fall?
Well, I liked it. I thought it was quirky and enjoyable and funny, and did have, you know, lots of jokes about the difference between NASA and Wallamaloo. And I thought Sam Neill was really charming in it. And I even thought the central gag about it, you know, Houston, we've got another problem. I laughed, I smiled, I chortled, and I chuckled, and I liked it very much.
Andrew concludes by saying, on the subject of Australian films, the same friend and I went to see Wolf Creek. Sorry, Mark, it's utter pants, and not scary, or disturbing, or very hard work at all, apart from the head on the stick thing.
Apart from the head on the stick. Oh, fine. Well, apart from that hideous sense of it, apart from that, it's like, that Psycho, that was rubbish. Apart from that shower scene, of course.
Philip in London and Durban, which I think is showing off.
Yeah.
On the subject of Wolf Creek, I cannot believe, it's a very, very long epistle, briefly, I cannot believe that such a seasoned moviegoer would be scared by this. It's been done before, and far better. Saw was infinitely more disturbing.
No, it wasn't. Saw was just funny. I mean, it was perfectly entertaining funny, but it wasn't actually disturbing. It was a funny movie.
Anyway, that's the end of that, because there's